Hey everybody, welcome back to Challenged Athletes Live. Our next guest, Alan Shanken. Alan, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, Bob. Super appreciate you having me on the phone. On the Zoom.
Always a pleasure. So, Alan, growing up, a congenital amputee,
hmm
back then, what were the options for you as an athlete, or were there any?
Um, actually, my recollection is kind of the following. I always wore this what I consider to be like an archaic prosthetic leg, and it was a result of what technology was at the time, and what we had access to, and what we were aware of at the time. So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. Um, and was there really until I moved to the Bay Area in my 20s, my early 20s after I graduated college. And back then, I didn't know any other amputees. I was the only other person I knew that was physically challenged. Um, and the reality is, talk about being on an island all by yourself. I clearly was, but not only was I, my entire family was. My parents didn't really have a resource. My brother didn't really have a resource. So clearly it was a real challenge. It was really the only life I knew.
And as a kid in school,
hmm
the letters PE were not your favorite.
Um, I tell this story and it actually gets me a little choked up when I even think about it at this moment, 50 years later, is that PE was really daunting for me because it exposed what I thought at the time were all of my weaknesses. I mean, I'm looked a little bit deformed. I don't have a foot on one side. The guys really, particularly the guys, at least at that time, define themselves by their athletic ability. It's how you fit in. It's how you became part of your first team, whether it be Little League as a 6-year-old or, youth basketball. And it's really endless. And I really put myself on the sidelines. The only thing I did to be part of a team, really up until really all through I never played any high school sports, so this is like pre-high school sports. Was I played some pickup basketball at the Jewish Community Center in Phoenix, which had a real positive impact on my life. I swam a little bit, but I was never. It was never really. It was never really a huge part, other than pickup basketball and some social leagues. Sports really was not a big part of my life.
Did sports come into your life when you moved to the Bay Area? Is that when that started?
Well, I would say that I was always in shape. So I would weight lift a lot. You didn't really need to be mobile for that. There was a big turning point in my life in when I was. So I was born missing the bones that make up most of my lower right leg. It happens to about one every 70,000 kids. And as a result of that, my folks were faced with the challenge, and it was whether to amputate or not. They chose to amputate, and I was fit with a prosthetic leg at a very young age, call it 2.5 years old, maybe 3. So, so I would stay in shape. Now when I get into like middle school and stuff, I would stay in shape, and I used to weight lift. Um, and things really, I was just sort of a weekend-ish warrior, but maybe not even that. Never playing on a high school sports team. Um, it changed really when somehow my life intersected with the Challenge Athletes Foundation randomly. And it just elevated my sort of approach to fitness, and which allowed me to, do lots of other things that frankly, that were never really on my radar until I met the CAF and the team
And,
there.
and was triathlon one of the first things you were doing? Because I saw you did Escape from Alcatraz, you did the Manhattan Marathon swim. It was almost like a little bit of a kid in a candy store. All of a sudden, this stuff's available, and I'm going to go and do everything.
So I met CAF. So it's an interesting story, actually, Bob.
Yeah.
So I actually did a triathlon in like 2001. It was the Pacific Grove Olympic distance triathlon. I'm sure you know it well. Well,
The
I mean,
Kelp
come on,
Crawl.
Bob. Yeah, exactly. You know every triathlon well. Um, so somehow I was introduced to it. I think it was through chair. I think it was through Team and Training, actually. And I didn't know what a running blade was. And I was kind of an avid swimmer. I really used to, Bay Area open water swimming is a legit thing. So I did some open water swimming. Maybe at that time I had done Alcatraz, 10 or 15 times. Didn't own a bike, so I had to buy a bike and learn how. I didn't know what clip-in pedals were. I didn't know that I actually didn't know back then that the goal was to be thin and the goal is to own a medium or small jersey, not to be heavy like you were like in football. I thought the goal was to be heavy and ride a bike because that meant you were strong. So this is how out of touch I was with the whole triathlon world. So I somehow I gutted through this Olympic distance triathlon in say 2001, pre my CAF experience, and I thought it was pretty cool. And then but I put it on the side. I would try and run a little bit with a walking limb. I would bike a little bit. But it was really a random experience. So when I met CAF, I would see these role models, the people that became eventually role models to me that had similar or more significant physical afflictions, but they did amazing things. I mean, we're talking, swimming infinitely, running marathons, biking 100 miles at a clip. And those folks, and there's too numerous of them to mention, created this sort of role model environment for me. And it really changed my perspective on sports, perspective on teamwork, perspective on determination and perseverance. And it's really something I try and live with every day.
So I'm guessing that there was a point where you came down to your first San Diego Triathlon Challenge, and that had to be fairly cathartic, seeing all sorts of other kids and adults dealing with challenges.
No question. I mean, so you go to this festival of fitness that, I call it sort of the untriathlon, because winning this race, showing up is winning the race at the San Diego Triathlon Challenge. And we get to do you get to meet so many different people from all kinds of walks of life, from all different stories, whether they be, veterans, or whether they be kids or parents just looking for some mentorship, or just kids to know that they're not all by themselves. So I ended up learning about the San Diego Triathlon Challenge and zipped down there and tried to raise a little money for the organization. And I think I did the swim and the run one year. And then since then I was totally hooked. I think that was maybe 2007, 2008, something like that.
When did you get the thought that, okay, it's great to be involved with this, but I think we can make a bigger impact up here in NorCal if I'm more of a point person to drive more people to this foundation?
So Bob, you'll really appreciate this. So I did the team and training thing, and the team and training thing is all about doing an event and approaching your friends to contribute on your behalf, and you can accomplish that event, and only good things can happen from that. So what I did is, as I mentioned, I was a pretty avid, open water swimmer at the time. I was a member of the South End Rowing Club, which is a big outdoor swim organization where you swim in the bay. So one of the iconic races out here is the Alcatraz swim, where you go in the boat and they drop you off. This is just the swim, not the entire triathlon. You go in a boat with maybe 1,000 or so other people, and you jump off the boat into the water, and you take off and you swim. So what I did is I created my own little fundraiser. At CAF, we call it Race for a Reason. So I did this event where I raised, I think at the time it was like $12,000 for CAF. And again, just asking people for $100 at a time or whatever they can afford. And it was great. We exposed a few people to CAF, and I accomplished something I thought was super, which was the race. And then a light bulb went off. I said, how about this? Instead of me asking all my friends for money, how about if I get my friends to ask their friends for money and for this awesome organization that we have? And the way to do that is by having an event. So at the time, I was very close friends with Jim Mises, who at the time was the CEO of a company called Club One. And his lead trainer was Jim Karanis, who was considered they called their chief CTO, their chief training officer at Club One. So we got together and we said, you know what, let's do an outdoor ride on stationary bikes. That's an all-inclusive day of fitness. And we called it Rock on the Green.
It was huge.
So it was great. I know you were there. We had, some Bill Walton was there and lots of other, but the key was we had these incredible spinning instructors there would recruit their class to come ride on behalf of CAF. So picture this. It's a beautiful morning in the Marina Green. It's a crisp 55, 60 degrees, 300 spinning bikes. They had just come out with these crank cycles. So if you're a wheelchair athlete, you can put your wheelchair up there and you can crank away for the 3 hours. Think of it as like an outdoor concert where there happens to be a spinning class. And that's what it was. And that is when we really launched some incredibly great stuff about CAF, about the site within the cycling community, with a gym organization, meaning Club One, and of course Jim Mizes behind us, and that launched where we are today.
So from that comes Celebration of Heart, and you've done that the last number of years. And watching some of your NorCal kids, Breezy Bohannon and Ella Rodriguez, and seeing them from the very beginning of their involvement in CAF, and now seeing where they're at, how does that make you feel?
Oh, it really gives me amazing purpose in life. And I think that seeing Breezy from when she was 9 years old, think about it. Her parents have to deal, and she has to deal, and her 4 siblings have to deal with the fact that this little girl at 9 years old is going to deal with cancer. And because of that, may lose her leg. And with that, we created an environment for her. CAF created an environment for her with role models, whether it be Sarah or others. And, it was good to be just sort of a spoke in that wheel, because I know that it gave her parents, a level of comfort. It gave her a level of comfort. And, you take a Breezy or a Rodriguez as an example, or Ella, they are doing amazing things. Things that, what I love about them is they are comfortable being fully vulnerable. Like they're going to put themselves in vulnerable situations. And frankly, that was something that I wish I would have done more of as a kid, whether it be, because I think that what you have sometimes what physically challenged people do is they will cast themselves a certain way. It affects your self-esteem and other things like that. So if you could just sort of address that up front, and that's what CAF really does for folks. It gives you an opportunity to address maybe your self-esteem, because you're using fitness as the foundation to launch your insides, not your outsides. So anyway, it's a long-winded answer, Bob. You should have cut me off at the knee. You should have cut me off at the knees.
I love when worlds collide. Here you are, University of Arizona alumni, right? And now we have a number of CAF wheelchair athletes who are going to go play basketball under scholarship at the University of Arizona. That's sort of the magic of Shank, is bringing worlds together.
Oh, that's a real special thing also. So it's really interesting when you get to a certain age in life, you get that call from your university. And I was at a point where my son was graduating the University of Arizona. I went to school there. My brother went there. My son went there. My nephew went there. My niece went there. My sister-in-law went there. So we have some connections to the U of A in Tucson. So I got that cold call from the development officer at U of A, and they said, "Will you take a meeting?" And I go, "Sure, I'll take a meeting." So I got to learn all about the adaptive athletic program at the University of Arizona, because I said I really wasn't going to donate any money to anything but that. So with that, I got to meet people that have been super instrumental in growing that program. And so this is a perfect example, Bob, of two things sort of colliding together.
Yep.
And so one of the great things about CAF, and I actually don't think it gets a lot of doesn't really get its due justice, is that we do help people get through school. We absolutely do. We know that Garnett, as an example, who goes to Redwood High up in Marin, if he didn't have CAF funding his wheelchairs and helping him with transportation and expenses, he he wouldn't have the purpose. And with that purpose, he stays in school. With him staying in school, he graduates. With his athletic prowess in wheelchair basketball, he ends up 4 years from now, he'll have a 4-year degree. And it's true for him. It's true for, Mac at Auburn. We can go on and on and on. So the tentacles of what we do, I mean, fitness is awesome, and it's a big part of my life. Hopefully after I lose my COVID-19 that I've got going on, I can get back and working out a little bit. But I do think that what we do is just way beyond the scope of sport. And it's just sports happens just to be our platform to launch.
Adaptive CrossFit. Again, worlds colliding. You were a weightlifting guy. Then all of a sudden, here comes adaptive CrossFit right in your wheelhouse. And that's taken off and got a little crazy.
Yeah, so we're really lucky here in the Bay Area because we have got a wonderful group here that work out together at the San Francisco CrossFit. We have an instructor who actually is an adaptive athlete himself, Max Conserva. Max is a wonderful, wonderful guy. He's mid-30s, graduated Cal with an engineering degree, and later had a change of career to become a fitness trainer. So when he was 8 years old, he had a bad accident. He got drugged by a car about 40 feet, truck actually. And as a result of that, he has one leg that's kind of lame. And when in his late 20s, early 30s, he decided to really tackle fitness and become a trainer. So with that, he has organized a group of us that work out together. And it's a wonderful group because it's a group that from all walks of life. I happen to kind of have a white collar job in the investment management business and live in the heart of San Francisco. Others are in wheelchairs that are still students. We've got people that work and come from all kinds of lives and all kinds of disabilities. And we get together and we work out about once a week. Max puts on a class and then he trains us. And it was interesting because of 2 years ago, the group got together and we competed in the adaptive athletic games, CrossFit games. And it was just a wonderful team experience for us. It was great.
So the most important award that we give, named after the athlete we started CAF for, and his picture's behind me, fellow amputee, Jim McLaren, and our 2020 Jim McLaren Award winner is Alan Shanken. What is, when you hear all that together, what goes through your mind? What does that mean to you?
Oh, it means so much, for a lot of reasons. First of all, the CAF is really near and dear to me. And to be, selected as the person this year means a lot, particularly, at this time of COVID, because I think that the able-bodied population is kind of feeling maybe what the challenged athlete feels every day. A little bit confined, a little bit restricted, not being able to do what you want when you want. So I would say that the thing that really hits close to home for me is that it gives me real pleasure to know that I can help other people. And I think that's really important that everybody does in any capacity in their own life. That we've laid the foundation that I can be impactful to others. And that just means a lot.
Alan, thank you for everything you do for CAF. You are such a great ambassador for all of our athletes. And congratulations on the Jim McLaren Award. And thanks for joining us on Challenge Athletes Live.
Oh, Bob, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real treat, and I'm honored to be, involved in the organization. So thanks, Bob. Appreciate it a lot.
Alan Shanken has been our guest, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Challenge Athletes Live.